esteemed guests, dignitaries, fellow readers, librarians, writers, activists, and dear friends. Vanakkam. It gives me immense joy to have and welcome you, each one of you, to the fourth edition of the Indian Library Congress, a gathering where books meet voices, ideas meet action, and communities meet change. Today, we are not just opening a conference, we are opening doors. Doors to knowledge, doors to inclusion, doors to a future where every village, every child, every marginalized soul has access to a book, a story, a dream. It's my privilege to welcome Dr. V. Sivadasan MP, our president, whose passion for libraries ignited Kannur's reading revolution. Very happy to have Mr. N. Ram, senior journalist, the conscience of Indian journalism, who lit the path of Indian Library Congress. And we welcome Mr. P. Girirajan, voice of the people, heart of the library movement. We welcome our beloved Dr. Irayanbu IAS, former Chief Secretary, writer, visionary, bridging the policy and the passion. We warmly welcome Dr. L. Halumanthaiah, former MP, who is going to introduce the fourth edition of the ILC today. So we welcome Mirtala Ghoshi, Delhi's community library warrior. We welcome Prajot Kaur, Punjab's library queen. We welcome all the dignitaries on the dais. Please welcome all of you. Welcome you all on the dais and off the dais. And also we extend our welcome to all the professors from Madras University and professors from other universities of the state and other states. This is not just a talk, this is an action. This is solitary. This is the heartbeat of the India's reading soul. Let's make these 2 days unforgettable with debates that stir minds, stories that stir hearts, and plans that stir change. Welcome, friends. Let's read, let's write, let's revolutionize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, our respectful greetings to Dr. V. Sivadasan, MP and the General Convener of ILC. Truly honored to have you deliver the presidential address, sir. I invite.
Dear friends and delegates, here the delegate from different states of the nation is here, and also respected N. Ram, the inspiring source of our library movement, Library Congress, also here. His words and his guidance is the inspiration of Indian Library Congress. L. Halumanthaiah, co-chairman of Indian Library Congress, and R. Girirajan, MP, Irayanbu IAS, and Pushpavati Puyapadatu. She has sung the song, of welcome song of Indian Library Congress. I think you all heard that song very 3 years back. She has sung the song, and that is given a good idea on the library movement. That shared the good idea of Indian library movement. T.K. Govindan Master, Praveen V.C., Prabhajot Kaur, P.K. Vijayan, and Vijay Kumar also here. Dr. Skamachi, she has spoken earlier before me, she has spoken here. She is taking a good initiative for organizing this Indian Library Congress in this library, the Anna Centenary Library, one of the center of academic debate and activities in the heart of the Chennai. So here, I think the delegates of the session will get a new ideas on libraries, and they will get new space to enlarge their activities, an idea of enlarge their activities. So dear friends, in this library congress, various session is here. The noted personalities are participating in these sessions. In the first session onwards, all delegates, I believe all delegates will actively participate, and they will formulate the idea of our extension of libraries, and how can make the outreach in the village, rural area of the nation. So these things we will discuss in this congress. So here we all know the number of libraries in India is not sufficient. The investment for the promotion of libraries is very less. That means for the library mission, National Library Mission, expenditure of 24-25 is below 2 crore rupees. But expenditure of some of the persons, those who are handling the constitution post, they are spending their personal expense more than 4 crore, 5 crore per year. But expenditure of the library mission below 3 crore rupees. So dear friends, we should take the initiative. Together we should take the initiative for more investment in library sector, and we should make a people's movement, people's campaign for the promotion of libraries. We all know that library is the place for everybody. In India, mainly in North India, the place for different castes is there, place for religions are there. The members of the religions are getting the space for sitting together. The members of various castes, they are getting the space for sitting together. But the place for everybody is very less. So we try to create space for each and every person of our nation. For space for all citizens is necessary for here. Dear friends, with these words, I like to conclude my presidential speech. I invite Dr. L. Hanumandaya for making the introduction speech on the Library Congress.
Library Congress Chennai 2026. I respectfully submit my congratulations to all the delegates present here in this Congress of Chennai 2026. Friends, our distinguished guest on the dais, Shri N. Rao, who is source for not only to this Congress, but for many thinking of this country. My dear friend who delivered his presidential address, Dr. V. Shivadasan, Honorable MP, and the President of this Indian Library Congress. And I also recognize the presence of Honorable MP Shri R. Girirajan, Shri Irani Anbu, Shashi Kumar, Pushpavati Poyendattu, Shri Govindan Master, Mridula Koshi, Praveen, Prabhajot Kaur, P.K. Vijayan, Vijay Kumar V, and all other friends who are present here. Library Congress is basically to propagate the letters, which is very new to the generation of many generations. I am inspired to be the part of this Indian Library Congress is that we, the Indians, are still to open to all the citizens of this country of the letters. We have not reached them. Our literacy, I think except one or two states, it is still 75% in the country. See, the 25% of the people of this country are still not literates. That is not a small number. It amounts to about 30 crore people, especially the downtrodden, the Adivasis, the tribals are illiterates even today in this modern technological world. So you know the importance of a library to be open to everybody in every village and every hadis and every tribal areas in the forest. The only communication which you can give is the letters, that is libraries. So it is very much necessary that we must have the goal of reaching every Indian in the country, particularly through the letters, that is through the libraries. That is the major intention of this. Our logo says it is not just creating libraries, it is breaking the walls between the human beings. The walls which are built temporarily by the privileged to the unprivileged. The unprivileged are not still reaching the main structures of the system. So, this is the way where we can reach everybody through the system. I have a small story. A tribal writer who has written in his biography saying that earlier he used to see the paper, it is only to keep bondas and give it and selling it. After he started going to night school, he realized that there are letters in that paper. It is not only to keep the bondas in that, but there are letters. Later he realized it is not just letters, it is my own story which is written in these papers. So he realized literacy and education is the basic thing for a human being to be enlightened. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who has given the great constitution to this country, has said, first goal of everybody, particularly the depressed and the marginalized, is to get education. Second is you should get organized. Third, you agitate for your rights. So very first and basic thing for any human being to realize that I am a human being, I am not an animal just, I am a human being also, to realize that the very basic requirement is education. And education is not just knowing the letters. It is not just that. It is to enlighten yourself to the affairs of the happening around you, happening in the country, which system is ruling you, and how you are ruled by a system which is not yours. That is the awareness. To get that awareness, library movement is a must. This system which we are now living is not giving sufficient funds to this awareness program. They build dams, they build roads, they build international airports. I don't say all that is unnecessary. It is necessary. But your library is also very, very important than an international airport. It is very, very important than your highways, than your railway lines. So we must demand the governments to allocate sufficient funds to the libraries which will enlighten the country's citizens. And they will, once they get enlightened, they will get what is the requirement, whether it is road or railway line or international airport or my awareness. He will realize. To get realized, it is very necessary the government has to allocate proper budgets to the library. I must tell you a small example of Karnataka. During Devaraja Arasu, who was our former MP, former Chief Minister, he raised a cess for Bangalore citizens. That cess has now become hundreds of crores. But the government is not giving that library cess to the libraries. It will be used for other purposes because they feel spending so much of money on library will be a waste. So this attitude, this Library Congress has to make the system realize this attitude must go and we should get proper allotment to the libraries. So friends, I request every one of you to actively participate, to deliberate on different issues which has been earmarked here and contribute in a great way to the library movement. Your discussion today and tomorrow will not just a discussion alone. It will lead the library movement further to the requirement of the modern world, to the requirement of the today's happening. So I wish you all the best in this occasion to take forward this movement to the higher, greater heights, and let us go together for this movement with hand in hand that we will achieve the library movement a great success to build not the walls, to build the relationship, to build the understanding between ourselves. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Dr. Shivadasan, MP, Dr. Kamakshi, Dr. Hanumanthaya, Mr. Girirajan, MP, Mr. Irai Anbu, former Chief Secretary and a passionate supporter of the open and free library movement, himself a scholar. He's done a great deal for spreading knowledge in the state. I want to mention that specifically. And friends, I had the privilege of participating in the inaugural session of the first Indian Library Congress in Kannur, which was, of course, the appropriate place to start a library congress, to launch a library congress. But you must think why it took so long after India attained independence, and particularly after our constitution came into force, for the first Indian Library Congress to be convened. Of course, it was a very good effort based on a lot of experience and a lot of achievements on the ground. I was just given this book called People's Own Spaces, Emergence of Libraries in Kerala, edited by P. Mohandas and Manu M.R. I think it'll be well worth reading because it reflects on, I haven't read it yet, but it reflects on what has happened to this movement, starting with Kannur in January of 2023. The second Library Congress, Indian Library Congress, took place in Bengaluru, the third in Delhi, and here with the support from the Tamil Nadu government and various people who love books and are passionate about acquiring knowledge and disseminating it, making it open and accessible. I think we are holding the 4th Library Congress. As I understand it, the Indian Library Congress is a platform, also a movement that brings together at a national level professional gatherings of librarians, educators, policy stakeholders, and others interested in this movement. And a distinctive feature of the Indian Library Congress and the people behind it, the outlook of the people behind it, is the emphasis on libraries as instruments of social justice and inclusion. Discussions focus on bridging the urban-rural knowledge divide, strengthening public library networks, promoting multilingual collections. There will be a session on translations, the importance of translations, and there's a major initiative in Tamil Nadu to translate, using professional publishers, translate books of great value in Tamil into English and perhaps later into other languages, and expanding services for children, women, workers, and marginalized communities. In this sense, as Sivadasan MP and Dr. Sivadasan MP and Dr. Hanumanthaya remind us, the Indian Library Congress aligns with India's constitutional commitment to equality, education, and cultural diversity. Not uniformity, not one diktat from Delhi across the land trying to flatten everything, trying to make India a non-democratic, an authoritarian state, trying to suppress the varied or distinctive identities of a remarkably diverse country, multi-linguistic, multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious, multi-political, multi-everything. And the attempt is to impose unitariness in the name of national unity, which is a fake narrative and attempt. But I don't want to get into that in too much detail. But the Indian Library Congress is a democratic movement that is committed, that expects libraries, public libraries, to serve as instruments of social justice and inclusion, and of course, the spread of knowledge, the development of a knowledge society, as we call it. We are meeting at a time when knowledge is abundant, but access to knowledge is deeply unequal. Just to give an example, Kannur alone has more libraries than the state of Uttar Pradesh. More public libraries, registered public libraries, I have to be precise, has more registered public libraries than the state of Bihar. So profoundly unequal among states and among different sections of society. And therefore, the public library stands as one of the indicators of democratic development in this country. It's the place where society declares quietly but powerfully that learning is not a privilege but is a right. Urimai. Learning is a right. The free public library movement is not new in India. In fact, I have an article here from the Hindu of, I'll just get there in a minute. Hindu of September 23rd, 1951. I have it from the digitized archive, an article by the writer R.K. Narayan on libraries, a passionate advocacy of the open and free library movement and how librarians should behave and so on. It's written in a semi-humorous way, but it's a strong plea for making libraries an open and inclusive space without too many rules and regulations hampering access to books. In those days, books, there was nothing digital. And it begins like this: the faint aroma of gum and calico that hangs about a library is as the fragrance of incense to me. I think the most beautiful sight is the gilt-edged backs of a row of books on a shelf. The alley between two well-stocked shelves in a hall fills me with the same delight as passing through a silent avenue of trees. The color of a binding cloth and its smooth texture gives me the same pleasure as touching a flower on its stalk. A good library hall has an atmosphere which elates, and so on. And this is an attempt to promote the idea of being open and free in a democracy. Public libraries are should be considered part of essential infrastructure. As I understand it, they perform three core democratic functions. They guarantee equal access to knowledge in a society marked by profound and widening inequality. Libraries are one place where students, young people, as well as others can access books, newspapers, journals, and the internet without cost. The Dravidian movement in the state, committed to self-respect and reducing caste inequalities, one of its features was the widespread use of reading rooms and libraries in small towns, apart from Kerala and so on. And that, I think, is significant, that it was able to grow by starting with reading rooms. The second core function is public libraries enable informed citizenship. Democracies are supposed to depend on citizens who can read critically, who can evaluate evidence and understand different viewpoints before they adopt one viewpoint. Libraries are therefore institutions of intellectual freedom. They provide access without excessive surveillance. There will be a certain amount of pilferage, a certain amount of vandalism also in libraries. But a good librarian, while being shrewd and protecting her or his books, will not function like a police person within the library. This is widely understood. Thirdly, the third function of libraries is they create non-commercial public spaces. And Kerala and Tamil Nadu, I think, particularly excel in this, the creation of non-commercial public spaces. In a world where virtually every space requires consumption, the library remains one of the last places where you can function without being a customer. Everything is a commodity to be bought or sold without that concept. And I think in South India especially, in other parts of India also, including Maharashtra, and particularly in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, the public library has played a transformative role in social mobility. In this state, generations of first-generation learners Also in Kerala and Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka and Telangana and perhaps elsewhere, like Maharashtra, first generation learners have prepared for public examinations in library reading rooms. Journalists, we have a number of outstanding civil servants who come from a very modest. That's not mine. Who come from a modest background, and many of them are first generation learners. And it is remarkable that they have gone so far, starting so late in the day, socially, historically speaking, and reading rooms and public libraries are an essential training ground for whatever they have been able to achieve over time. Today, the library is, of course, not just a place for repository of books. It's a digital access point. It's a media literacy center. It's a community learning hub. It's a local knowledge archive. And it is an instrument, a force that can be used to combat a big disease we have today: misinformation and disinformation through social media, weaponized on scale to target constitutional values, the kind of values that that the preamble has embodied. I think soon we'll be reading out from that. I think it started with the first Library Congress, and we'll continue to do that. So I'm not going to address problems such as underfunding, outdated collections, digital inequality, commercial control over information, and so on. Those will figure, I suppose, in sessions, more than 10 or we have over the next 2 days, we are going to have 10 or 11 sessions where specialists will discuss these things. But I think this time there's no session on artificial intelligence, how it's going to affect the library movement and so on. Perhaps later. I had a word with Dr. Sivadasan, and he said those are relevant, but we have not made provision in this Library Congress for that, but perhaps soon after it can be done. I want to talk about the experience of 2 states. First, about the state of Kerala. The public library movement in Kerala, known historically as the Granthasala movement, is certainly the outstanding pioneer for community-driven knowledge democratization in India. I don't know of any other place in India, any other district, where it's caught on, it's caught fire. And the number of, not just the number of registered public libraries, but the way in which people decide what books to buy, the local community, I think it's an outstanding example, and that's where Dr. Sivadasan and some others come from. They represent this experience, and it is appropriate that they have taken the lead in organizing this this movement called the Indian Library Congress. The library movement in Kerala began in the early 20th century, closely linked to social reform movements against caste hierarchy, for national mobilization, freedom, for the freedom struggle, the outstanding role of workers and peasants organizations, and the spread of what's called vernacular print culture. Missionaries contributed to it, but so did the left and others who formed part of our freedom struggle. And Kannur naturally emerged as a nerve center for this library movement because it had a strong tradition of political mobilization, trade unionism, and literary activism and I think it was the most dynamic district in the Granthasala movement. And the features of these have been well known. The book, I think, will give a lot more information, a lot more detail and insights. Key features: community-owned libraries. Most of these libraries are established by local reading groups, funded through what is now called crowdsourcing, small public contributions, run by volunteers. This created a participatory, knowledgeable culture which few other parts of the country have been able to rival. But we can learn from this. Secondly, reading rooms as political schools. In Kerala, libraries functioned as sites of, and in Tamil Nadu also later, I'll mention that, as sites of ideological debate, spaces for studying history, economics, and literature, centers for workers' education. You have that in Europe, in the UK, other parts of Europe. Colleges set up for workers and so on, and libraries, but libraries have played a vital role in this. And thirdly, the third feature would be the integration with workers' movements, particularly BD workers' unions, agricultural labor organizations, and teachers' associations. This gave the library movement a strong class dimension and connecting literacy with social empowerment. And another feature, Kerala's universal literacy cannot be understood without its public library network. This has provided access to Malayalam periodicals and books, encouraging reader habits among people in rural society, and supporting adult literacy campaigns. So the famous Kerala model, high literacy, social awareness, and political participation, was sustained by these humble reading rooms. And then over time, the state provided support. The movement evolved from purely voluntary initiatives to a state-supported public library system. And from Dr. Sivadasan, I got these figures, updated figures. The total number of public libraries in Kerala is 9,960. In Kannur, 1,350 registered with the Library Council, plus 85 non-registered. So on. We don't have enough data, I think, across the country, but this tracking helps us to understand this. Now I'll turn to Tamil Nadu briefly. The public library movement in Tamil Nadu took a different turn. It was also democratic. It also made a big difference socially and politically. But it evolved in a different way, and it is one of the most institutionally structured and socially consequential knowledge initiatives in India. Again, rooted in the late 19th century, with the growth of print culture and strengthened by 20th century, the social reform movements, including the militant social reform movements, the radical social reform movements. But it was evolved into a strongly state-supported system that's played a decisive role in literacy, social mobility, and democratic participation. And there's a literature that shows that combating caste inequalities in different ways. You don't get rid of it, but you reduce it. You bring about a significant change in this inequality. If you make a concerted effort, then I think various dynamic forces will play a role in society, are activated in society. And that, I think, is there's a literature that argues that this is what makes the model called the Dravidian model here successful in terms of social indicators, in terms of development also, providing opportunities in terms of entrepreneurship and so on. But that's a big subject. We restrict our discussion to the role of libraries, the origins of the library movement in the Madras Presidency lie in the expansion of Tamil print culture, missionary and secular reading rooms, literary societies and debating forums, and the rise of newspapers and journals in Tamil and other languages as well. And these reading spaces have enabled the spread of modern political ideas, rationalist thought, and anti-caste discourse. And by the early 20th century, libraries have been strongly associated with the self-respect movement, with the social reform movement, and the democratization of education. Also, if you look at the gross enrollment ratio, Tamil Nadu is far above most major states, virtually double of what a state like Bihar and so on, much above the national average. And the institutionalization that took place with the enactment of the Tamil Nadu Public Libraries Act, that was a major turning point, 1948, I believe, because it created a legally mandated, state-supported library system. And its key features are a dedicated Directorate of Public Libraries, a three-tier structure. Dr. Irambu can say a great deal on how these have worked, if there is time and scope for such an exposition. But the three-tier structure, State Central Library, District Central Libraries, branch and village libraries, and so on. And the Connemara Public Library, I'll come to that in a minute, I think serves as, or has served in the past, as one of India's 4 national depository libraries. It has a comprehensive archive of books, newspapers, and periodicals. It's been a major research center for scholars, journalists, and students, and it symbolizes Tamil Nadu's long-standing commitment to public access to knowledge. The other day, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu inaugurated an interesting event. I don't know how many of you were there, but a magnificent statue of Karl Marx was installed right in front of the Connemara Public Library. I think the earlier plan was to have it elsewhere, along Anna Salai, in a college where people could see it, but after representations were made, I think the right decision was taken to install this, to locate this. I think for those who come from elsewhere, you should certainly visit Connemara Library and see this, because it's only a few days old, this installation, so on. Why? What is the connection between Karl Marx and Connemara Library? And the answer is, I think the CPIM represented that Karl Marx used the reading room of then it was the reading room of the British Museum, where he drew up on various reports, various books, and quite a lot of his work, his writings, were done in the library. He lived under economic constraints, but it's pointed out that when he entered the library, he entered a space where all his concentration was devoted to the work on hand. And Das Kapital and several other books were there. The knowledge that he obtained from the reading room of the British Museum, which has now become the British Library. The other day, the Financial Times published a very interesting article on this, how the reading room where Karl Marx used to work has now been transformed into a magnificent public library, the British Library, not the museum anymore, in a different building, and so on. But it's not just Marx, it was also Vladimir Lenin, who spent a great deal of time in these libraries and public libraries, which were not available at that time in Tsarist Russia. And I think it really speaks to the power of libraries, how revolutionaries have, as well as those in the social reform movements, as we saw in Tamil Nadu, have been able to use humble reading rooms and wherever possible, good libraries with abundant, in those days, books, journals, newspapers, and so on, to build their ideas and build their theoretical frameworks, which have certainly changed the face of humankind. I thought I'll end with this note, on this note, that Tamil Nadu is an appropriate place, Chennai is an appropriate place, and this great library, which has been through some travails, it was started out, and then there was a political change. This library was sought to be converted into a hospital, a specialized hospital, downgrading the library. Fortunately, there was judicial intervention and that was stayed, but we lost quite a few years, and so, there were gaps that needed to be filled, and it's still being attended to. But this is a place where a legal struggle was waged for protecting this public space, and I think it's apt that the Indian Library Congress, the 4th edition of the Indian Library Congress, is convening at this venue. I think I've said enough. You could say a great deal more about public libraries, but I'm very happy to have this opportunity. I was there in the inaugural session of the first Library Congress at the invitation of the Kerala Chief Minister and also Dr. Sivadathan, and I'm privileged to be here today. I wish the Congress great success.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். இந்திய லைப்ரரி காங்கிரஸுடைய தொடக்க நிகழ்விலே வரவேற்புரையாற்றியிருக்கின்ற திருமதி காமாட்சி அவர்களே, இந்த இந்திய லைப்ரரி காங்கிரஸுடைய தலைமை உரையாற்றி இருக்கின்ற அன்பிற்கினிய நண்பர், என்னுடைய நாடாளுமன்ற மேலவை உறுப்பினராக பணியாற்றி கொண்டிருக்கின்ற சிவதாசன் அவர்களே, இங்கே அறிமுக உரை நிகழ்த்திய மேனாள் நாடாளுமன்ற மேலவை உறுப்பினர் திரு ஹனுமந்தையா அவர்களே, இங்கே சிறந்ததொரு உரையாற்றி இருக்கின்ற இந்து குழுமத்தினுடைய மரியாதைக்குரிய திரு என் ராம் அவர்களே, மற்றும் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை கலந்து கொண்டு உரையாற்ற இருக்கின்ற முன்னாள் தமிழ்நாடு அரசுடைய தலைமை செயலாளர், இந்திய ஆட்சி பணிகள் அதிகாரி திரு இறையன்பு அவர்களே, மற்றும் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியிலே நன்றுரையாற்ற இருக்கின்ற மனு அவர்களே, நிகழ்ச்சியிலே கலந்து கொண்டிருக்கின்ற சசிகுமார் அவர்களே, புஷ்பவதி பாயபதுஸ் அவர்களே, டி.கே. கோவிந்தன் மாஸ்டர் அவர்களே, மிருத்து கோஷி அவர்களே, பிரவீன் விசி அவர்களே, பிரபஜித் கரூர் அவர்களே, விஜயன் அவர்களே, விஜயகுமார் அவர்களே, இந்தியன் லைப்ரரி காங்கிரஸ் சென்னையிலே இந்த நிகழ்வை நடத்துவது ஒரு பொருத்தமான இடமாகும். எனக்கு முன்னாலே பேசிய திரு அனுமந்தையா அவர்களாக இருந்தாலும், இண்டூர் ராம் அவர்களாக இருந்தாலும், தமிழ்நாட்டிலே எழுத்தறிவை வளர்ப்பதற்கும் படிப்பதற்கும் ஒரு மிக சிறந்த ஒரு அடித்தளத்தை உருவாக்கியது திராவிட இயக்கங்கள் உடன் மார்க்சிஸ்ட் இயக்கங்கள். இங்கே வருகை தந்திருக்கின்ற திரு ஜிஆர் அவர்கள் பல நேரங்களிலே குறிப்பிட்டிருக்கிறார். ஏனென்றால் ஒரு மனிதனுக்கு தேவை கல்வி அறிவு. கல்வி அறிவு இருந்தால்தான் உலக அறிவு பெற முடியும். உலக அறிவு இருந்தால்தான் அரசியல் அறிவு பெற முடியும், பண்பாட்டு அறிவை பெற முடியும், நம்முடைய கடந்த காலத்தை உணர முடியும் என்பதை தீவிரமாக உணர்ந்த இயக்கங்கள் தான் திராவிட இயக்கமும் கம்யூனிஸ்ட் இயக்கம் அடித்தட்டு மக்களை எப்படி மேலே கொண்டு வர வேண்டும், அப்படி மேலே கொண்டு வருவதற்கு ஒரு கருவியாக கல்வி அவசியம். அந்த கல்வியை கொண்டு சேர்ப்பது கல்விக்கூடங்கள் மட்டும் கல்வியை கொண்டு சேர்ப்பதற்கு பயன்படாது. கல்விக்கூடங்களிலே அனைவரும் சென்று பயில முடியாத இருந்த காலத்திலே நூலகங்கள் வாயிலாக தமிழ்நாட்டிலே திராவிட இயக்கங்கள் படிப்பகங்களை, ஒரு தெருவுக்கு தெரு படிப்பகங்கள் இருக்கும். ஒரு 40 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முன்னாலே சென்னையாக இருந்தாலும் அல்லது தமிழ்நாட்டின் எந்த பகுதிகளாக இருந்தாலும் அங்கே திராவிட முன்னேற்ற கழகத்தின் சார்பாக படிப்பகங்கள் அமைத்து அத்தனை பேரும் போயிட்டு உங்களுக்கு பத்திரிகைகள் வாங்கி படிப்பது என்பது ஒரு கடினமான காலம், புத்தகங்களை படிப்பது என்பது ஒரு கடினமான நேரத்தில் என்னதான் நூலகங்கள் இயங்கும். நூலகங்கள் ஒரு குறிப்பிட்ட நேரத்துக்கு தான் இயங்கும். காலையில் 10 மணிலிருந்து 5 மணி வரையில் நூலகங்கள் இயங்கும். மாலை நேர படிப்பகங்கள் என்பது வேலைக்கு செல்வோர், அதை போல பணியாற்றுகின்ற தொழிலாளிகள், இவர்களெல்லாம் மாலையிலே வந்து அந்த படிப்பகங்களுக்கு சென்று அன்று முழுதும் நடந்த விவரங்களை செய்தித்தாள்கள் வாயிலாக தெரிந்து கொள்வதற்கு ஒரு படிப்பகங்கள் வசதியாக இருந்தது. அப்படி படிப்பகங்கள் நேரத்தில் எல்லார் வீட்லேயும் விளக்கு வெளிச்சம் இருக்காது, எலக்ட்ரிசிட்டி கனெக்ஷன்ஸ் அத்தனை வீட்டில் இருக்காது. ஆனால் படிப்பகங்களை உட்கார்ந்து மாலை நேரங்களிலே டியூஷன் எடுப்பார்கள். பிள்ளைகளுக்கு அழைத்து வந்து பிள்ளைகளுக்கு டியூஷன் எடுத்து அவர்களுக்கு கல்வியை வளர்ப்பதற்கு தமிழ்நாட்டிலே மிகப்பெரிய இயக்கத்தை திராவிட முன்னேற்ற கழகம் நடத்தியது என்பது ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய சரித்திர நிகழ்வு. அதனால்தான் இன்றைக்கு எழுத்தறிவிலே கேரளா தமிழ்நாடு இரண்டும் முந்தி நிற்கிறது என்றால், லிட்ரஸியை பொறுத்தவரை இன்றைக்கு 100%, 95% நாம் பெற்றிருக்கிறோம் என்றால், இந்த இரு இயக்கங்கள் இந்த இரு தமிழ்நாட்டிற்கும் அதே போல கேரளாவுக்கும் செய்த பணிகளின் காரணமாகத்தான் மக்களிடத்திலே எழுத்தறிவை அதிக அளவிலே ஏற்படுத்தியது என்பது தவிர்க்க முடியாத நிதர்சனமான உண்மை. அந்த அளவிலே இன்றைக்கு இந்தியன் லைப்ரரி காங்கிரஸை நீங்கள் தமிழ்நாட்டிலே, அதுவும் குறிப்பாக சென்னையிலே, இது வரலாற்று பிரசித்தி பெற்ற இடம். இந்த அண்ணா நூற்றாண்டு நூலகம் என்பது வியக்கத்தக்க வகையிலே அன்றைக்கு முதல்வராக இருந்த கலைஞர் அவர்கள் கட்டி முடித்து இன்றைக்கு மக்கள் பயன்பாட்டிற்கு அளிக்கப்பட்டு பல்வேறுபட்ட தடைகள், இங்கே என்னுடைய இந்து ராமர்கள் கூறியதை போல இதற்காக பல்வேறுபட்ட தடைகள் ஏற்படுத்தப்பட்டன கடந்த கால ஆட்சியாளர்களால். இந்த இடம் மாற்றப்பட்டது, லைப்ரரி வளாகமாக இருந்தது. இதை மாற்றி வேறு பயன்பாடுகளுக்காக பயன்படுத்தப்பட்ட நேரத்திலே அன்றைக்கு முதல்வராக இருந்த கலைஞர் அவர்கள் மிக அரும்பாடுபட்டு மீண்டும் இதை நூலகமாக இயங்குவதற்கு பல்வேறுபட்ட முயற்சிகள் மேற்கொள்ளப்பட்டு இன்றைக்கு லட்சக்கணக்கானவர்கள் பயன்படுகின்ற வகையிலே இந்த நூலகத்தை அமைத்திருக்கிறார். இந்த நூலகத்திலே இந்த இந்தியன் லைப்ரரி காங்கிரஸ் நடத்துவது என்பது மிகுந்த சால சிறந்த இடமாகும். அதே போல திராவிட முன்னேற்ற கழகத்தின் இப்போதைய தலைவரும் தமிழ்நாட்டின் முதலமைச்சராக இருக்கின்ற தளபதி மு.க. ஸ்டாலின் அவர்கள் திராவிட இயக்க கொள்கைகளின் வாரிசாக இன்றைக்கு பணியாற்றி கொண்டிருக்கின்ற விதத்திலே இதே போன்ற ஒரு நூலகத்தை இன்றைக்கு மதுரையில் மறைந்த கலைஞர்களுடைய பேரில் ஒரு நூற்றாண்டு நூலகத்தை உருவாக்கி அங்கேயும் பயன்பாட்டிற்கு அளிக்கப்பட்டு இன்றைக்கு ஆயிரக்கணக்கான மாணவர்கள், ஆராய்ச்சி படிப்பு மாணவர்களாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அது மருத்துவக் கல்வி மாணவர்களாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அல்லது என்ஜினியரிங் மாணவர்களாக இருந்தாலும், சட்ட மாணவர்களாக இருந்தாலும் அத்தனை பேரும் சென்று பயன்படுகின்ற வகையிலே மதுரையில் மிகப்பெரிய நூலகத்தை அமைத்திருக்கிறார்கள். அதே போல கூடிய விரைவில் திருச்சியிலும் ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய நூலகத்தை அமைக்க இருக்கிறார்கள். நூலகங்களை பொறுத்தவரையிலே அரசு அமைக்கின்ற நூலகங்கள் வகையில் இன்றைக்கு இந்தியாவில் கிட்டத்தட்ட 45,000 நூலகங்கள் இருக்கிறது என்று ஒரு புள்ளிவரம் குறிப்பிட்டாலும், இந்த வரிசையில் இன்றைக்கு அதிகமான நூலகங்களை வைத்திருக்கின்ற மாநிலம் கேரள மாநிலம் தான். கிட்டத்தட்ட 8,500க்கும் மேற்பட்ட நூலகங்களை பெற்றிருக்கிற மாநிலம் கேரள மாநிலம். 20%, இந்திய அளவிலே 20% நூலகங்களை பெற்றிருக்கின்ற மாநிலம் கேரளா. அதே போல தமிழ்நாடு இன்றைக்கு ஒரு 4,600 நூலகங்களை தன்னகத்தை பெற்றிருக்கிறது. கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒரு 10% நூலகங்களை பெற்றிருக்கிற மாநிலமாக இன்றைக்கு தமிழ்நாடு திகழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறது. நூலகங்கள் ஒரு நகரத்திற்கு ஒன்று அல்லது வார்டுக்கு ஒன்று என்று இருந்தது போய் இன்றைக்கு வீட்டுக்கு வீடு நூலகங்கள் வர வேண்டிய காலகட்டம் உருவாகிவிட்டது. இன்றைக்கு சோஷியல் மீடியாஸ் இதனுடைய தாக்கம், படிக்கின்ற வழக்கம் இன்றைக்கு குறைந்து கொண்டே வருகிறது. இந்த படிக்கின்ற வழக்கம் குறைவதன் காரணமாக நமக்கு வருகின்ற செய்திகள் எல்லாம் அது உண்மையாய் தன்மையை அறிவதற்கு நமக்கு நம்முடைய அறிவு இடம் கொடுப்பது சரியாக இடம் கொடுப்பதில்லை. அதனால்தான் நூலகம் வாயிலாக நாம் படிக்கின்ற புத்தகங்கள் தினசரிகள் வாயிலாகத்தான் எந்த உண்மை தகவலையும் நம்பி நாம் இன்றைக்கு இந்த சமுதாயத்திலே பயணம் செய்ய முடியும் என்கிற சூழ்நிலையை எதிர்கால சந்ததியினத்தில் ஏற்படுத்த வேண்டிய காலகட்டம் வந்துவிட்டது. எழுத்தறிவு இருந்தால் மட்டும் போதும் இன்று இருந்த காலம் போய் இன்றைக்கு அந்த எழுத்தறிவின் மூலம் சமூக ஊடகங்கள் பாதிப்பினை சமுதாயத்தில் ஏற்படுகின்ற நேரத்திலே உண்மைத்தன்மையை அறிவதற்கு நாம் புத்தகங்களை வாசிக்க வேண்டியது கட்டாயம் என்பது இன்றைக்கு அவசியமாக ஒன்றாக இருக்கிறது. அதனால்தான் வாசிக்கின்ற வழக்கத்தை, வாசிப்பு என்பது சோசியல் மீடியாக்கள் வாயிலாக வாசிப்பதல்ல, புத்தகங்கள் மூலமாக வாசிப்பதுதான் ஒரு வாசிப்பது என்பதை எண்ணத்தை இன்றைக்கு இருக்கிற இளைஞர்கள் மத்தியில் உருவாக்க வேண்டும். இந்த இயக்கம் இன்றைக்கு தொடர்ந்து இப்படிப்பட்ட பணிகளை ஆற்றி வருகிற நேரத்திலே இது அதிகப்படியாக இளைஞர்களை போய் சென்று சேர வேண்டிய பணிகளை ஆற்ற வேண்டிய பொறுப்பு இந்த அமைப்பிற்கு உண்டு என்பதை நான் இந்த நேரத்தில் கூறிக்கொள்ள விரும்புகிறேன். எதிர்கால சந்ததி மிகவும் வேகமாக இருக்கின்ற சந்ததி, ஏஐலாம் வந்துவிட்டால் எது உண்மை எது போலி என்றே தெரியாது. மனிதர்கள் உண்மைகளை தேர்ந்தெடுப்பது என்பது ஒரு கஷ்டமான சூழ்நிலையை உருவாக்கிவிடும். அந்த நேரத்திலே ஒரு தவறான செய்தியின் அடிப்படையிலே தவறான வாழ்க்கை பாதைகளை மாற்றிக்கொண்டு போகின்ற சூழ்நிலை உருவாகிடும். இவற்றையெல்லாம் தடுக்க வேண்டும் என்றால் வாசிப்பு திறன் மேம்பட வேண்டும். வாசிப்பு திறன் மேம்பட வேண்டும் என்றால் அது நூலகங்களுக்கு சென்று வாசிக்கிற திறனாக மட்டுமல்லாமல் ஒரு இல்லங்களிலும் நூலகங்கள் அமைக்க வேண்டிய காலகட்டத்தை உருவாக்க வேண்டிய, ஒரு 100 புத்தகங்கள் இருந்தாலும் அந்த 100 புத்தகங்களை இந்த ஆண்டு வாங்கினோம் என்றால் 100 புத்தகங்களையும் படித்து முடிக்க வேண்டும். அடுத்த ஆண்டு ஒரு 20 புத்தகங்கள் வாங்க வேண்டும். அந்த 20 புத்தகங்களையும் படித்து முடிக்க வேண்டும். இப்படி புத்தகங்கள் படிக்கின்ற பழக்கத்தை இல்லங்களில் இருந்து, வீடுகளில் இருந்து தொடங்குவதுதான் எதிர்கால சந்ததியினருக்கு ஒரு நல்ல விதமாக முடியும். அந்த வகையிலே அந்த எண்ணத்தின் அடிப்படையிலே எதிர்கால சந்ததியினருக்கு வலியுறுத்தி அவர்களை புத்தக வாசிப்பாளர்களாக உருவாக்குவது நோக்கமாக இந்த லைப்ரரி காங்கிரஸினுடைய நோக்கத்தை கொண்டு செயல்பட வேண்டும் என்று கூறி வாழ்த்து தெரிவித்து விடைபெற்றுக் கொள்கிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
This is the preamble to the Constitution of India. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. And the preamble then says, in our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, this you don't have to recite, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution.
The Chair of this session, Dr. V. Shivadas MP, General Convener of the Indian Library Congress, Dr. S. Kamashi, who has delivered the welcome address, Dr. L. Hanumanthaya, Co-Chairman of the Indian Library Congress, who has introduced the conference, and the inspiration of this very Indian Library Congress and this movement, N. Ram, who has made the opening remarks, and Honorable R. Girirajan MP, who has facilitated the gathering, and other distinguished persons on the dais, Irayanbu IAS, former Chief Secretary, Pushpavati Poipadal, T.K. Govindan Master, Mridula Koshi, Prabjot Kaur, P.K. Vijayan, and Vijay Kumar V, and delegates who have come from various parts of the country, and who have joined this August gathering. Coming 2 days, we will be discussing and debating on various issues. We are already running late of our schedule, and so at this point, a long vote of thanks would not be appropriate. So, but still, Dr. S. Kamachi, she has given us a lot of help in organizing this conference here from the very beginning. The conference has got a lot of support, and we are doing it in collaboration with the Centenary Library. On behalf of all the delegates present here and all of us, I propose my heartfelt vote of thanks to Dr. S. Kamachi. And Dr. V. Shivadatsan MP, he is the key organizer of this entire event. On behalf of all the delegates, in the name of formality as it is formally required, I propose my heartfelt vote of thanks to Dr. V. Shivadatsan MP. And Dr. Hanumanthaya sir, he has been part of the Library Congress movement from the very first stage, and he has given an insightful introduction to the conference. On behalf of all of you, I propose a heartfelt vote of thanks to Dr. L. Hanumanthaya MP. And Sri N. Ram, he has given us a very insightful beginning for the conference, and he has also inaugurated our conference by leading us into reading the preamble of the Constitution, its key part. And on behalf of all of you, I propose heartfelt vote of thanks to N. Ram. And to R. Girirajan MP, from the very beginning when we had the preparatory meeting in this Chennai, we were fortunate to have his presence from the very beginning. On behalf of all of you, I extend my heartfelt thanks to R. Girirajan MP. And we have all other distinguished persons on the dais. On behalf of all of you, due to positive time, on behalf of all of you, I propose a heartfelt vote of thanks to all of them and to all the delegates. Thank you.
With this, we have officially commenced the National Library Congress 2026. Once again, a heartfelt thank you to all our esteemed guests, dignitaries and friends for gracing this occasion. Let us continue this journey of learning with purpose. Thank you and have a good day.